my kind of audience, I then try and connect with.
Did a search on LinkedIn and said, Sheffield business owners.
We put all the people we wanted to speak to, so we had 15 people who whacked their face on a mug, and we said, best partner, in brackets, hopefully. Hi, I'm here with Sam Horner over at Swoop. We're going to be talking today about a variety of topics, from using partnerships to get leads to segmenting your audience. Sam, do you want to give us an intro about you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Tom, for having me. Much appreciated, mate. Sam Horner. I have worked in this space for 9 years. I've worked with accountants for 20 across banking, legal, and now accountancy. You'd think I'd be a estate agent or something, wouldn't you? You know, I'm going for some of the hated professions, but I've come to the loved one, which is accountants. Yeah, I've been in this space 9 years. Did 4 years at Dext, 2 years at Futurely, and then I'll come up to my 3rd year in August with Swoop.
Oh wow, amazing. 9 years in accountancy. What have you seen that's changed over those 9 years?
I've had this question asked a couple of times. Honestly, I still don't feel like much has changed. You know, we may have replaced desktop with cloud. You know, in some instances, there is still a large volume of accountants that are still using you know, old systems. I think the biggest change I've seen is I suppose the revolt from I suppose the traditional route to go to partner, work your way through from you know, from qualified or trainee to qualified to semi-senior, by the way, which is the worst title ever. It's the most degraded. I don't know how anyone would be happy with that title. It just sounds so. Do you not think it's? I was speaking earlier. Oh, we're acquiring a semi-senior. Come on, guys. You know, give them an interim one between, you know, junior and senior, but not semi-senior. That just sounds strange. Anyway.
Yeah.
And then moving to that path of partner, which is the traditional model. What is really nice to see is people have gone, no, I don't want that anymore. That's not the way that business has to operate. And they've gone out on their own. And you've seen so many do that, you know, and rise through over the last few years. You know, the Graham Tennants of the world, the Stephen Pauls, the people have gone, okay, I want to do something for me, and I see a way that I can change this and do something right. You've also seen that with bookkeepers as well, you know, where bookkeepers have typically been sitting in the background, you know, and it's almost the accountant is deemed as the I suppose the controller of the client, and the bookkeeper was more just feeding the information through to them on a you know, weekly, monthly basis. Whereas now, you know, you're seeing the Catherine Freemans of the world, the Lara Mantons and so on, who are actually in their own right creating much more interesting businesses by delivering advisory, because they know their clients, they work closely with them, and they've built ultimately a business that's standalone, that, you know, still operates and working with accountants, but done in a more collaborative way. Yeah, so I think they're the biggest changes that I've seen, that from a I guess a positive change. You know, but ultimately, has the industry changed that much? Yes, technology's driven some efficiencies, but it's also created inefficiencies as well, in its own right, if I dare say that.
Yeah, I think the cloud technology has definitely made it more accessible for people just to kind of get going and start. I think one of the biggest things that you talked about there is, I've always said about the bookkeeper, like, they are a lot of the time the person closest to the client data. And I think probably the biggest trend I've seen that's changed is people understanding the value of that data now, rather than it just be like we've always historically looked at the past, like, you know, you send your USB Sage update disk, and it's like, oh, what's happened? It's now like, okay, well, we've got this live data coming in now. What does that data actually mean, and how do I interpret that to my client? That's really cool. And yeah, like you said, like people like Laura Manson are doing a really great job of that. So obviously you're at Swoop. Like you said, you've been there 3 years. I remember when you first joined Swoop, and I was a bit like, who is Swoop? I don't necessarily think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they had a massive brand in the accountancy world. Good brand, but not in the accountancy world. That's something that you've really kind of grown as you've been there, right?
Yeah. So yeah, when I built a partnership with them for 2 years when I was at Futurely. When I joined Futurely, you know, I asked Hannah and Helen, who do we partner with for funding? They said, oh, we don't. I was like, well, you know, it's almost like going to the doctors, telling them your problems, and them going, yeah, okay, sorry, you're going to die, but I haven't got the solution or, you know, the prescription for
Yeah.
you, you know, on your way. You'll have to go find it yourself. Go Google it, you know. So I met with every funding platform in the land, and just fell in love with what Kieran and Andrea were building at Swoop. But yeah, to your answer, we didn't have an accounting channel. We had kind of a referral channel for accountants, but we didn't have a dedicated team and an offering. So I set about building that when I joined, and then yeah, Sam Tasker-Grindley joined me I joined in the August, and then Sam joined in the December to head up the success side, and then yeah, together we built the channel over the last 2.5 years of building it. I think is pretty much about right out of the 3 years. So yeah, it's and yeah, we're growing strength and strength. Some amazing accountants we work with and bookkeepers. Yeah, having fun currently, and some nice partnerships. The Sage one to be one, which is my life at the minute. I need to dye my beard green instead of ginger anymore. You know, this was for Dext, and now I need to think about you know, maybe rebranding to green because I've spent so much time on it.
Yeah, I mean, if you did one of your hairs green and kept the ginger, you've got the Irish flag right there, so you're quitting,
Like it.
or the Ivory Coast flag, whichever you prefer. So like you said there wasn't an accountancy channel this week. You just said, you know, you've got a partnership with Sage. Sage is a massive company, which is amazing. What has been your approach to getting and building? Well, I guess first and foremost, getting people aware of Swoop, but then secondly, making them become customers.
Yeah. So I think the first thing you've got to understand is, do you have a software that's going to help and help the end user, you know, whether it's the accountant or the SME? Is there something that gives them reason to buy, changes the way that they currently operate, or enhances, adds value, whatever phrase you want to use? You've got to think about, does that really benefit the audience? And you know, the initial, you know, funding is a huge part of any business, and any accountant I've got to be careful, I'm not doing a Stu Hurst here, but any accountant that says that they don't have clients that need funding, you know, need challenging, because that generally means that they haven't asked the question. Because you know, most conversations with business owners would stem from, you know, I think back to my banking days when we would, you know, run a discovery meeting when I meet a new client, and you know, I'd kind of say, you know, what's your Disney World? What is it that you want to work towards? What is it you want to get out of this business? And it's always some element of growth or a lifestyle balance or something along those lines. Now, to get them to that point, and whatever their, you know, their Disney World end point is, along that way, there's going to be some kind of elements of funding. You know, okay, to get there, we're going to need to employ five members of staff. Okay, how are you going to fund that? We're going to need 3 more vans. Okay, how are you going to fund that? We need to move to a bigger warehouse. Okay, how are you going to fund that? Now, there might be self-funding, which is fine, but actually, let's explore the options that are available. Let's look at what is available to you, and that might be the best option, but let's see what's out in the market, you know. And having the tools and being able to sit in front of that client confidently and go, well, okay, I've got a team of experts in the background that's going to look at this for you, you know, whether it's identifying potential grants for them, you know, for the premises move, or you know, it might be that, you know, there's an element of grant funding that we can get them in there. But actually, whilst we're at it, you know, that warehouse that you've got, your energy bill must be crazy. Okay, let's review that as well at the same time to see if there's any potential savings. And whilst we're there, you know, let's have a look at what other funding is going to be required. You know, do you go down the equity route? We can look at, you know, potential investors. Do we go the, you know, the loan funding? What does that look like? You know, what's the options available? We'll go out whole of market and present it. So when I joined Swoop, it was like, this is something that every accountant should have in their kit bag. I'm not saying we're going to work with every accountant, because it has to be what fits and what's right for them, and the right attitude as well. But for me, it was like, okay, this is something that has a perfect a product market fit, if you want to call. So it was a natural progression to move from just the partnership piece. Actually, let's partner with accounting firms as well, because there's so much value we can deliver. And at the core of what we do, and what I've always done, is it's almost it's enabling the accountant to assist their clients, which means that in turn that client then has a much more pleasurable experience with the accountant. They're not deemed as just a once a year bag of box. And I'm not saying that's a sweeping statement. They've delivered value that's outside of what you'd expect from your accountant. They've just saved me 10 grand on my energy bill. That's not something you'd expect from an accountant. Or they've just found a grant for me, whatever it would be in terms of a service, which then in turn gives a longevity of the life of the client. There's more services that they take out within the accountant, so they're stickier, they're going to stay longer. And as they grow, you grow. So it's ultimately a win-win situation from that respect. So I know that's a long-winded answer. And your question was, how do you make it fit? But for me, it's like understanding, what are the pain points, or what is it that's missing from a kit bag, I suppose.
I think. Sorry, there. I had my internet. I think I thought you'd finished talking. I jumped right in on you. Sorry there. I think the biggest thing that you've done there really, really well is a lot of people define their ideal client, but before like maybe you've got to that point, you've really defined what it is and what you're doing first and foremost, which then you can be like, okay, who is this going to best suit? And it's really interesting you said about accountants delivering more than expected. I've literally just come from standing on Dunstable High Street asking the general public, what does an accountant do? And the majority of people just turn around to me and went, oh, they're kind of like, make sure they do your finances for you, and make sure that you're doing like your regulatory stuff. That was like the majority of the answers I got. No one really mentioned about speaking to their accountant more than maybe once a quarter at best. You're then like, okay, you're an accountant, you want to grow your business, people have this problem, we can give you the tools to do that. So how do you get accountants in front of you and start using Swoop?
Well, in terms of how do we attract them and get them so multitude of channels. So we've got the partnership channel, which is a natural place for me to start, given that my world's been partnerships for quite some time. So with first of all, with partnerships, there has to be a common ground. There has to be a common benefit, which the partnership stage is a great example. They work with 8,000 accounting firms or something crazy like that, in various different guises and shapes and form. They're working with the same people we're working with, so there's a natural fit there. They've got a product suite that sits nicely from the proposal through to advisory piece, but funding is a core part that's missing. So there was a natural fit in my mind, as to and obviously I had to knock on the door for several months and keep telling them that, but over the last 2.5 years, it's obviously got to where it is now with the global partnership. So that's obviously a great place when you can have other companies banging the drum for you and talking about the value that you can deliver. That's huge, and that, if you can crack that nut, is, don't get me wrong, it's hard work and it's real graft. I've got the ball patch to prove it, but it's genuinely, it can be so rewarding for all parties. But ultimately, it's supporting, and I keep saying this, it's going back to that SME. Yes, we work with accountants, but it's ultimately to support the accountant, to support the SME, because ultimately they're, that's contributes to our economy and where we grow, and everyone else wins, don't they? So partnerships are a key part. But I think also a lot of brand awareness as well. You've got to have a voice out there. We do a lot of the industry events, whether it be DAS, Accountex. What else have we had? Come on, we've had Fab was another one. We supported via Sage on that one. But there's so many events that are out there that
Mm.
ultimately want, get your brand awareness, but also doing things like this, where it's a more honest and open conversation rather than I don't know, a stuffy webinar or something. Although we do those as well, but we've over time partnered with different institutes as well, again to reach different audiences. But I think you have to be quite varied in your approach and do a little of everything. And I know that sounds quite daunting, but I think you need to dip your toe. Like, social's great. I'm terrible at it, genuinely terrible at it. But I think Dermot Hamlin, his Curly Whirly 100 Club or whatever it was, he did actually send me a pack of them because I did my annual post and I got something like, I don't know, 15,000 impressions or something like that.
Wow.
So I probably should
Wow.
do more. But I'm not that person who would put myself out there verbally. I'll rephrase that. Online, I struggle with grammar and I panic and I worry that it'll get torn apart. I'm sure it won't, but that's my personal demon. I do these all day long and I'm absolutely fine, but things like that, and I get it. I can see so many people coming out of the comfort zone and putting themselves out in the open and doing something, online. I know you're well on LinkedIn and so on, but social does play a part, and I think if you ever look at a post that a company does compared to what an employee puts at a post, you'll get, I don't know what the stats are, but probably 10, 20 times more engagement in a personal post than you would do from a company posting it, because companies are faceless in that. Yeah, you don't see the human behind it. And I think, especially given in the accounting industry, people buy people. And I think very much within the business world as well, showing your scars in some ways and your vulnerabilities is more endearing to people. And whereas I think back to the banking world, that was deemed as a chink in your armor. If you showed vulnerability back in the banking days, it was like, you can't show that. You've got to. And we used to have this game on a night where you'd be in the office. It's about 7 o'clock. You go, "Time you finishing tonight?" And you go, "I don't know. What are you doing?" "I'm going to do 8. Oh, I'll probably do about 8:30. And it was this really weird badge that going, "Oh, well, I didn't leave the office till 9 o'clock last night." But for what? It wasn't, no one benefited from it. And it was a really weird state. Whereas I find this industry is very much, you can be open and share warts and all, as it were. And I think it's welcomed with open arms rather than it being deemed as a weakness, essentially. I probably went off on a slight tangent then. I do that a lot. But hopefully
you're fine. I think what you've covered there is for you, one thing that you've done really well is you've built partnerships with partners that basically have not only a commonality, but you plug a gap that they don't, that big partner doesn't have. So you've plugged that gap, which is that's what's in it for them. You've then gone also not to just anybody. You've picked a specific partner that has a huge audience base of people that you want, and then you've basically completed that solution so that kind of comes in. And you were then, you've also touched about like socials isn't for you. And I think a lot of the time people maybe see a lot of time you see people shouting about the things they've done on social media. So everyone's like, oh, I need to be doing that. I need to be there. I need to be there. But actually, like you're living proof, right? You've built a brilliant accountancy channel and you hardly ever go on social media to post yourself, which it highlights the importance there. Actually, if you know where your audience are, and you don't always have to go through social media. You can go through partnerships. And I think accountants can do that really, really well. Like I spoke to Ian Dempsey earlier today. He's an IFA. There's areas that an accountancy isn't going to touch in a business on a business owner.
Yeah,
that's a perfect plug. So all of a sudden, as an accountant, because I partnered with somebody else, I can offer you to look after your business, and then I can also look after you personally as well. Yes, it's somebody else doing that, but that partnership is then gonna build your solution, and obviously naturally get more people in.
I'm just gonna just as we were talking then, what's quite interesting, just thinking, and I do feel like there is a real echo chamber in this industry. You quite rightly say people shout about what they've done, but they tend to be shouting to the peers about what they've done. And something that Sam Newton Gravitate, I really liked the post that he put the other day. He'd put, I think he'd hit 10,000 followers or something like that, and he showed how he did it. And he said it wasn't, by connecting with other accountants. It was actually reverse engineering and searching and going, right, who do I want to follow me? So I want business owners in Sheffield, because that's where his practice is based. I want business owners in Sheffield, and there's a filters you can do. And if if anyone wants to, you can go on and see what Sam posted. I really liked it, and it's pretty basic actually when you look at it. But he just went, did a search on LinkedIn and said Sheffield business owners, I think it's C-suite or something along those, particular titles and so on. And then he'd have a list of all these people, and then he'd connect with them. And then guess what? He sits on their feed talking about what he's just done for a client, how he's launched his corporate funding arm to the business, part of what Swoop has helped him with. But all of these things that he's then feeding it to them on a daily basis, and they're going to start to see, and they're going to and it might be subliminally, they might not realize that this stuff's coming through, and then one day they go, oh, you know what? I'm not really happy with my accountant. Who was that guy that I found? I'll have a chat with him. He seems really personable. He seems like he builds a good relationship, and I think I get on with him. And it's just, I think it's a much smarter way of doing it than, if I put a post out, it's to a lot of accountants, so that is my audience. But like Rish, when I put a job advert out the other day for a BDM, Rishi reshared it, and he said, I'm sharing this for my network, however I have the same network as Sam, so pretty pointless. And I was like, you're right, actually, because it's the same people, and it's like, how do you reach that audience? And that's what I thought was really nice and smart what Sam had done.
Yeah, and I think the thing you touched on at the beginning of this is understanding your proposition. Like now I've got to be careful because I'm talking about two Sams here. But Sam from Gravitate knows his proposition. He knows who his client is. You know your proposition, who your client is, and it's really interesting. So I've done a bunch of different podcasts already, and there's three that come to mind: Max Whiteley, Ian Dempsey, and us right now. With Max's approach, what he did, similar thing. Went into LinkedIn, did the searches you wanted, creative industries that were in the creative sector, an owner in and around Manchester. We did, connected with them, sent them a DM with a little loom. Hi, I'm Max. I'm on your profile. I work with creative people. They have these problems that we solve. Yeah. I'd love to chat to you, but if not, I love being a connection either way. And then they'd either respond to that or they'd see his stuff. Then with Ian, we were talking about, it took him 3 to 4 months until he really started getting it. And then he made one post, went and played golf. So one post, went and played golf, came back, had 12 leads in his inbox. And that just kind of accrued up to a point where he remembers the day, it just popped. And that's the thing that, you've really identified there is actually, if I'm an accountant, so I do this every single day. I log onto LinkedIn, I search founder or owner or director. I go second degree connections, accounting industry, and I search. I right click, open new tab on every single one of those profiles, and all the people that I think are my kind of audience, I then try and connect with, or at least follow. And like, if you're an accountant, you could do that. And I roughly do only 10 to 20 a day, but over a month, 10 to 20 a day over 30 days, 300 new connections. Obviously, not everyone's going to accept me because they might not like the look on my face, but not everyone's going to accept me. But if I get 200 new people, but this is the thing, if I get 200 new people from that, and every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, if I was posting 3 days a week, they see a piece of content out of those 200 new people. After a period of time, one of those is going to go, do you know what? I need to have a chat with Tom because I want to increase my email marketing. Or I want to do this, or I want to do that. So that's the thing, right? I think again, you kind of touched on all of it, but that then also part of the LinkedIn element there is you've got brand awareness in what you do, from saying these are the solutions I have for your business, and then you have the personal brand that people can connect with you, where you share the other things about who you are as a person. Like going back to Sam at Gravitate, I think we all know that he posts about his running and his journey with running and his brother's journey with running, which is really, really motivational. People that like running, that are business owners in Sheffield, are probably going to absolutely love what he's doing.
Yeah, or even if thinking about running, because I guess it still helps with the motivation from that side as well. Yeah, I think there's the biggest issue I see, and I know you didn't ask this question, but I'm going to give you this information anyway, is, and this probably is a great plug for you, mate, but the biggest issue I see, and I had a call with an accountant just a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about what we do at Swoop and how we support accountants and so on. We even have a marketing hub which has loads of content within it that we send out to SMEs. We've got 135,000 SMEs, so we send a lot of content out on a daily basis. And we can, help them send a different voice of message to different types of business industries. In terms of, you're not going to talk to a construction client the same way you would a hairdresser. Just that you need to have a different voice and tone and everything, tone of voice, should I say. And as an accountant director, he said, Sam, I love it and I would love to do it. I said, I have a newsletter that is ready to go. It's built, created, and I've been paying for the software for 12 months. All I need to do is put the email addresses of my customer base in it, and I still haven't done it. And he was like, I know I will do the exact same thing with Swoop. I love it and I want it, but I won't do it. I just don't physically have the time or make the time to be able to do it. And I think the biggest issue we have when it comes to any kind of marketing, lead generation or anything is having that individual within the practice to do it. And it's amazing how many firms I speak to say, I'll ask them, what's the plan for 2024, 25? What is it? Is it to deliver more value to existing clients, or is it to acquire new clients? And I say, or is it both? Most of them will say to acquire new clients, and you're like, okay, so what are you going to do? What's your strategy? Well, and then all of a sudden there's no answer, but they know they want. And I'm going, okay, so what do you want to grow by? Oh, we want to grow by another 20%. Okay. So what are you currently growing at? 5% a year. And that's organic. Okay, that's good. That's okay. But you're going to get some churn, within that, unfortunately there's going to be insolvencies and so on. How are you going to get to that 20% growth that you want? And again, just it's a blank. What's your social media strategy? What's your lead generation strategy? And it's suddenly, but they don't have that individual within the business to take it forward, or it'll rely on someone who, you're good on TikTok, aren't you? Go on, you can do that, and I don't know, it's a bit, but then it's never someone's full-time role, or that's, back to the whole funding piece, that's why we exist, which is why you exist. It's like, okay, you don't need a full-time resource. You just need someone to really, really assist and guide you in doing it. And actually sometimes wiping your backside for you and getting along with it, because, and I think, one of the issues that, and I feel for the accounting industry, they're expected to do so much more than accounting. Like we always say, this age old, someone who makes cupcakes didn't go into business to, selling cupcakes to, having to balance books and do this and do that and pricing strategies and all of that. They just want to sell cupcakes. In the same way that accountants have gone into accountancy, yes, they want to help small businesses, but ultimately they want to be an accountant. And it's, the industry is now going, you need to do this, you need to do that. I it from a funding perspective, and then the obviously Stu is out really poking them and going, you have to do this. And it just it is I can imagine it's a tough gig because there's so many things that they have to take on, and marketing is not an easy one. It's not, unless you know it.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think it's one of those where as most accountants, like, well, every accountant is at the end of the day is a business owner, and I think there's a sales and marketing element that every business owner takes on naturally, but at some point they look for a professional to do that job. As where what we're seeing at the moment is this explosion of accountants actually being like, you know what, like I don't just want referrals anymore, I want to take more clients. And obviously technology has got so much better that capacity to take on more clients has become better. Like that, there's softwares out there that can do the majority of your day-to-day bookkeeping tasks that all of a sudden you've freed up like 10, 12, 13 hours. People want to fill that now, and referrals alone aren't going to fill that pot. And then you've got somebody shouting over here going, I've just hired a marketing person that did a ABM campaign and bought £200,000 worth of fees. Like, spoke to Max, he was getting £70,000 worth of new fees each month. Like, wow. That's mega. That's what, in 3 months, £210,000 of recurring fees one person generated. And it's like, as an accountant, you're sitting there now going, I need to do that. But your list of tasks is probably like longer than a vegan shopping list. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, and before we move on, Tom, for the audience and also for me, what's an ABM?
ABM campaign. It's an account-based marketing, is what it stands for, ABM. And basically, it's you tend to use it for more like chunkier enterprise type clients, and you treat them as their own market. So. Like a really, really great example is when I was at Bots for that, we sent out we had these mugs, we put all the people we wanted to speak to. So we had 15 people, we whacked their face on a mug and we said, best partner in brackets, hopefully. We've done a little one page, they scan a QR code, they come to a landing page, like, can we book a call? And then we followed them on all of their different social medias. We found out kind of like where these people are getting their information and everything about that one kind of type of person. Everywhere they would look, everywhere they would go, they would see us. And that's the game plan, is that it's like, we know you have these problems, we can solve these problems for you, these are your problems. If we've done our job well, we knew that. And then it's just that continual, okay, rather than wait, I might say accountants generally are going to send out emails and social media, it's going to hit everyone. I'm going to focus, like really hyper focus on just a handful of people here. That's account-based marketing.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you a question now, because presumably the spray and pray method isn't ever going to work, or it might do. Just genuinely fire out some emails generically to a lot of businesses. I suppose it'll have some impact. But would you say that they need to know exactly what their audience is or what the makeup looks like first, and then target hard on those rather than, like I say, the old-fashioned, I sent out 50,000 emails, but actually what's your click-through and what's your open rates, your click-throughs and actually sign-ups off the back of it? Is it just a waste of energy and time?
Yeah, so that question is a really difficult question to answer, because that can kind of depend on where that person is in their actual buying journey. If you're at awareness, you're going to have a much more mass market approach, because my job at that point is to get as many of the people that I want to come through to that next stage, where then I'll be a little bit more focused. I think the quicker win, especially with an increase in like social media, emails, so emails, for example, email signups are on the rise, and it's expected to be a 17.9 billion industry by 2028. Like, emails are, think about your bank statements, think about your two-step authentication, pretty much everything comes via your email. It's one of the biggest places. So like, what I want to do is I want to get as many people as I can that fit my audience and filter them through. And it's that's where we start. But yeah, the answer to your question is it really depends on what you're trying to do and where those people are. And that's why it's really important that your content isn't always the same, in the sense that I want to talk, like, for me, my ideal audience is accountants that have 1 to 3 partners. They're kind of like year 5, year 6 of trading. They're going to hit that referral bottleneck. They want to take that next big growth plan, because maybe they want to hire somebody else, or they just want to take that next jump. And they're thinking, what do they want to do? That's my ideal audience. So what I want to do is I want to speak to 100 different people and find out if those people are there, but the content is geared to attract those people. I might put it in front of 100 different accountants. Hopefully I get maybe like 20 of my ideal clients. And that's it's dependent on where that person is in their journey, will then depend on what you do.
And that's a fair point. Yeah, like you say, it depends on and I think you're right to treat the stages in a pipeline, or whatever you want to call it, as and respect that they might only ever be prospects, and like I said, from an awareness perspective, it might just be that I'm educating them, and you know what, that it might be not for them, but it might be for someone else, and I've had that before where someone said, really like your content that you guys share, it's not right for me, however I've sent it on to a mate who should be in touch, and you're going, okay, well that's great, because they become before you know it, they're advocates of what you do, and they've not even used your product or actually engaged with you fully. So yeah, and I suppose it must be a hard thing to quantify as well. Like we always do at events, and we go, well, what was I don't know, Zoe Lacey Cooper talks about ROO, doesn't she? Return on opportunity rather than investment, because actually you never really know. Like if, I don't know, we put a big billboard sign, Leeds City Centre, whatever, about Swoop. How do you quantify that? How do you calculate the return on investment? Because it's so hard. Do you accept that it is just awareness, and that's fine, and I think that's where I suppose you've got to, as a business, accept what you're willing to invest in each of the stages. And I guess that's where you probably look to break it down and go, look, awareness, you can create 2,000, as it were, or whatever, and then it just works its way down. And actually, what does that? Yeah, I suppose if you're working on percentages, that then converts, hopefully gives you a number of clients that it's going to bring.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if we talk about awareness, one of the biggest things you can do is be hyper focused on who your client is. The more specific you are, the more direct content you're going to create. The more direct content you create, the better your engagement with the right people is going to be. But you can help yourself, right? So you've just said there you went to these industry events. So say I'm an accountant and my ideal client is construction workers that have 10 staff that currently on, I don't know, like a desktop, and they know they need to go onto a cloud software. And I want to be that accountant that helps that transformation. And that's my client I want to deal with. There's no point you going to a general small business where like seminar or a mathematicians get together. You want to go to a trades expo, because there's going to be other trades there, but there's a higher percentage of construction businesses there. So what you want to do is get yourself in front of as many of those as possible, and then you'll with the messaging, you'll filter out the people that really connect with you and want to take action. And that's the bit then, obviously, as you make your way down, the more hyper focused you are, the more these people are going to engage. And then what it does as well, Stu Hurst is phenomenal at this, is it polarizes people. If people love you or like, that's nonsense, and they get angry at you, you make people feel you're doing the right thing.
And that's it. I think if you're loved by everyone, then you're doing something wrong, because people, you should be loved, not hated by people, but there should be a Marmite element to people. And yeah, you're right, it's stand up what you believe in, but also if construction is your client, then you've got to think about how are they most comfortable. Do they want to speak to somebody in a suit? Probably not. That do they want to be, dare I say, and again, I'm stereotyping, but do you want to be probably a bit more down to earth and, dare I say, rough and ready? I don't know. I might be completely wrong there, but they want somebody who speaks their language ultimately, and someone who baffles them with, I worked in the legal sector for 2 years, and our mission was to change that perception of the legal sector, because it was very much suits and will baffle you with English that doesn't even sound like English. It's like it's another language, and we'll also charge you for the privilege. So it's just, I think if you find an audience, you need to know your audience, and you need to be, and I think also in most instances, having walked even a yard in their shoes, some empathy or understanding of what they go on, even if it's a family member that works in that industry or something, some link that can bring you back to that industry, I think helps massively. Rather than it being something that you just go, oh, they look like they'll pay us good fees, let's go after that. I think there has to be, for me, I love a story. I love a backstory. I love a reason why it exists. What was it that whether it's Rod Drury's story at Zero, whether it's Hannah's at Futurely, whether it's Andrea's at Swoop. That I love something that, okay, this is why I exist. This is my why. And I think businesses can buy into that massively as well, because it's a belief that, okay, you understand me and you take me serious. I'm not just a number to you. I'm actually, an individual that you care and listen to.
Yeah, you're spot on, and that's where that personal brand then comes in. And if you have your why as your business and you have your values, that's naturally going to reflect into your personal brand, which is then what's going to make people connect with you.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, we've touched a lot here. I guess, like the reason why I'm in business is because I've launched different products to the accountancy space, but the large thing I've done is throughout my career is always spoken to accountants, understand like how do they get clients, what are the problems, and really understand. I think you've done a lot of that yourself. So if I'm an accountant and I want to start getting more clients other than my referrals, what do you think the one thing is I should do?
Write a book. No, don't write a book. Everyone's wrote a book. I'm joking. I think, well, the first thing is you need to understand and define who you want. Who is your customer and what is your why? And I know it's a really cheesy thing. I'm interviewed at the minute and I'll always ask what is their why. And I'll explain mine first before anybody else, before asking them, just so it puts them at ease. But you need to understand your why. But also you need to project that why, I personally think anyway, to your prospective audience, whether that is through social, whether that is through email, whether it's through video content, whether it's through networking. It's not dead. Yes, COVID obviously screwed it up for a couple of years, but networking still a great way of operating as well. As you mentioned, like I said, Tom, go to trade shows, understand the industry, find out more about it. They're everywhere. They are everywhere. But I think you need to immerse yourself in that industry if that's what you're going after, particular client or size or location or anything. But yeah, I think try things out. And I know that sounds really silly, but and I said it earlier, a little bit of everything. And I know that you might go, well, that's not great because that means I've got to do loads of different things. But it doesn't, create more of a presence on LinkedIn. Have a look at TikTok. I'm told all the time that business is done on TikTok. I mean, I just think it's going to be 12-year-olds flossing, and I don't mean the teeth. Apparently, it's some weird dance. You can tell I'm a dad, can't you, and old, but think about, don't go on Facebook, I wouldn't say. I feel like, my in-laws are on there, my mum's on there. That kind of gives an indication as to the audience. I'm sure business is done on there, but have a look at different areas, understand, speak to Tom. That's what you should be doing. Forget actually what's your big piece of advice. Speak to Tom because he's the master, and we'll be able to assist in the right ways.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, for more of Sam's expert advice. I think, yeah, I always the reason why my business is called Lead Flow Lab is really simple. Is you have to experiment with what works for your client and also what works for you, because that's never gonna. You have two accounts going off at the same industry, they'll never have the exact same approach because what works for some person doesn't work for another. I love social media and email marketing. You're great at partnerships.
Yeah.
We both work with accountants. We just have different ways of going around it. And that's why it's the lab. Is like you need to experiment. And once you've found what that thing is, that's where you double down. And that's when the leads then flow, hence the Lead Flow Lab. That's why it's a lab. I think, what you said there, right? Is like the biggest piece is establish who the person is and then go and experiment with what gets in front of them, then double down on it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and if you can't do that, acquire, and we'll assist you with funding the acquisition. There you go. Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah. Step one, find your client. Step two, acquire. Yeah, cool. Look, so I'll post obviously in this your LinkedIn. Is there anywhere else you want people to go?
No, you can message me through LinkedIn, nice and easy. I think it's just Sam Horner. You'll see the cheesy ginger face. I don't think I've got glasses on that one, which does throw people. Genuinely, I had a colleague the other day, and she was like, "I didn't recognise you. Thought it was a different person." I don't think I look that different, do I? Without glasses, I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, just drop me a message on LinkedIn. More than happy to have a chat, or if anyone wants any advice, if I can give it, I'll try.